tell me about what we're looking at on the cover of Time magazine.
So this week's cover is a photograph of the orb, which is a new piece of hardware made by a company called Tools for Humanity, which was co-founded by Sam Altman back in 2019. And his vision back then, this is the CEO of OpenAI, he believed that the technologies that OpenAI was working on would one day reach the point where you couldn't really tell the difference between text generated by a human generated by an AI. So today, on the internet of the last kind of 10, 15 years, we have captures, which are these little tasks that we are asked to complete in order to verify that we're a human. But now we've built increasingly powerful systems that can solve those kinds of questions. And so the question that Tools for Humanity set out to answer was, okay, what kind of thing can humans always do, but will AI never be able to do, even if it's really, really capable? The answer that Tools for Humanity came up with was really it has to be a trait that humans have in the physical world, because AI doesn't have a body. And what does that mean? It's a biometric piece of data. So your fingerprint could be a biometric, your DNA could be biometric, your iris scan could be a biometric. DNA is pretty hard to access. Fingerprints, they kind of break down before you get to the roughly 8 billion mark. So this company settled on irises, which are both easy to scan and also relatively unique up to large numbers of humans. So what the orb does isn't store a photograph of your iris. What it does instead is it takes a photograph of your iris and then turns that using an algorithm into something called an iris code.
Is it about proving you're a human, or is it about identifying your individuality to get access to, your bank account?
It's about proving that you're a unique human, but not proving which unique human you are.
Got it.
So think of it not as like a replacement for a password, but as a replacement for a captcha. So you would probably still need a password to log into any online service, but this would be an additional layer on top to say, yes, I'm not a bot.
In case people don't sort of understand what a bot problem is, can you explain why bots are a problem?
Yeah, so I think most people intuitively understand when we talk about how when we go on social media, often the kinds of content that you see might be posted by people, but also increasingly it's spam, misinformation, videos that you don't really know where they've come from or who's promoting them. A bot is essentially just a person trying to use a program to spread their message at scale in the world. And really, what we want when we use social media platforms is to have human scale interactions.
So, the reason you wrote this story now is that the orb was just introduced here in the US, correct?
That's right. There was an event at the beginning of the month where Sam Altman and the CEO of this company, Alex Blania, appeared on stage announcing that 7,500 orbs would be rolling out over the course of the next year in the US. That's about 5 times more orbs than currently exist anywhere in the world. And for a long time, they hadn't had any presence in the US because the orb is also a crypto technology, which they say the previous administration didn't have very kind policies towards. So they've only chosen to roll out in the country now that President Trump is in power and has cleared the way for various crypto schemes.
So it sort of requires like a brick and mortar setup originally, right? Like the actual physical orb needs to be in a real place. Actual humans need to go get their iris scanned. And part of encouraging people to do this then is that they get paid. Yeah?
Exactly. There's really no reason for most people to go and do this unless there's something in it for them. The example we use in the story is the PayPal example. When PayPal got started, they spent a small amount of their initial funding on building, so maybe less than 10 million, much less than that. But then they spent about 70 million on this referral program, which, if you remember when you first signed up to PayPal a long time ago, they were giving away, I think, $10 for new users to sign up and then $10 for the person who invited them as well. And that's based on this observation that really scale is the most powerful factor in a network like this. Your network becomes more valuable and useful purely as a function of how many people use it. So the most important thing to do for a network like that is to just make sure as many people join it as possible. And if you can spend money on that, then that's great. Even better is if you can make an entirely new cryptocurrency essentially for free and give that out, which is what Tools for Humanity have done with their crypto world coin.
They've created a currency. And they
Exactly.
think enough people are going to be interested in getting in on the ground floor of this currency that's called WorldCoin. Uh, how much do you get for signing up?
So it changes. You get more the earlier you sign up, which is another kind of incentive mechanism to get people in the door early. It equates to around $42 at the moment, if I'm not wrong. Obviously, the exchange rate fluctuates. Um, and you can claim it in monthly installments over 12 months, so you don't get all of it at once.
And where are the places so far that people have been able to sign up?
They've launched in many places around the world. So I went to South Korea to watch essentially their local relaunch there. They've been there for a couple of years, but they are really redoubling their presence there. They've got a big presence in Indonesia, Argentina, Lisbon, lots of places across Europe.
The physicality of it is fascinating to me.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about software that has led Sam Altman and many of the other investors in this um, startup to being incredibly wealthy is that you can scale software really fast. All you need to do is ship new code and push it out into the world. But this isn't that. You need to build hardware, you need to ship it to places, you need to deal with all of the various jurisdictions in all the different countries that you're operating in, not just about crypto, which is a controversial technology, but also privacy. You're dealing with biometric information. So they've had some, bust ups with various different regulators around the world, and that's going to be a significant challenge for them to overcome. But at least in the US, they've now got the red carpet rolled out for them.
Do you see companies signing on to the orb and requiring somebody's unique digital number in order to access their offering?
There's a kind of chicken and egg problem. There's only 12 million verified users, so why would any platform say sign in with your World ID? But they have got a partnership with Tinder in Japan, where they're rolling out human verification. Obviously, catfishing is a big problem online. Also, the gaming company Razer has launched a program allowing users to do this. It's a big problem in online video gaming, the problem of bots cheating on video games. So they're an early adopter. But more broadly, what they're really trying to do is get to the point where you have 100 million or a billion verified humans in the world, at which point they could very easily knock on Facebook's door and say, hey, you've got a bot problem. We have a way to solve it.
So tell me your journey, if you will, with the orb. You signed up. You donated your biometric data to this project, didn't you?
I did. So I went to interview the CEO in his San Francisco headquarters. And after our interview, I was invited to verify my humanity. You're not allowed to call it scanning your eyeballs. They kind of get a bit annoyed at you if you call it that, even though that's the parlance that seems to have taken off on the internet. Anyway, so I was invited to verify my humanity, and I thought, I'm not sure I trust these guys, but I'm a journalist, I'm writing about this company. It would be remiss of me to not engage with their technology. So I went and I did it, and on the day it was pretty cool. Like the orb worked, it beeped, it gave me some WorldCoin, it gave me a World ID. It was all cool. And then I got home a couple of weeks later, was working on the story, and then I was kind of thinking, like, what happens if I want to delete this data? Like, surely they must let me, right? Lo and behold, it turns out they let you delete your iris data and your World ID from your own phone, but they say that the orb has anonymized your data before sending it out to the servers, which a caveat of that is if it's anonymized, then it's not yours anymore, so you can't ask them to delete it. In a statement, Damian Kieran, Chief Privacy Officer of Tools for Humanity, says, to prevent people from creating second or third world IDs, anonymized data is stored in decentralized databases. This data cannot be used to identify a person by world or any third party, but it allows the World ID system to reject a person trying to create a second or third World ID. It's designed to keep every World ID owner and the services that rely on the World Network safe.
So just to be clear, then let's put it through the lens, if you will. So Billy shows up, Billy has his eyeballs scanned, which isn't what it's called, and into this system via the orb goes your biometric data, and out comes a number?
Yes, so you get what's called an iris code, which is
Yep.
I think 12,800 digit binary code, which,
That comes to you as a QR code, or how do
no,
you?
it's a string of zeros and ones.
And you have to keep that in your, like, when you go back to use it, how will you use it?
So you never actually interact with that string of zeros and ones. That goes to an app on your phone and essentially uh, tells the app that you have successfully verified your humanity at the orb. And then you have a world ID on that phone inside that app, which says, yes, tick, this person's a human. They can go and use this system and interact with various websites.
And what do privacy experts say? What are the concerns? How could this data be used against us?
So it's an open source system, which means that it's pretty auditable by privacy experts. By many accounts, it seems to be pretty privacy preserving for the most part. And my only kind of complaint about it in the reporting of the piece was that I wasn't aware of the fact that I couldn't delete my data, which they wouldn't agree is my data, after
Because it's been
kind of
anonymized.
exactly. In terms of how the overall system works, it does actually make use of some really interesting, innovative privacy techniques. One of those is called zero knowledge proofs, which we touched on earlier, which work such that I can basically use my app and prove to whatever service I want to connect to that I am unique without showing them the information that lives on my phone that is private that proves that I am unique. So that's essentially a way of going to a website and saying, I'm allowed to access this thing without that website then knowing who that person is, what other websites have they used their World ID to access. All that they know is this person is unique, which is pretty cool. We don't have a technology that can really do that, and that solves one of the big problems with the social security number.
So one of the things I was interested in is that you talk a little bit about how Sam Altman, who is the co-founder of this company that's made the orbs, has believes that AI is coming for our jobs in a lot of ways, right? And that then perhaps we get into a world where humans need a universal basic income, right? Is that important here? Is that a driving factor in why he thinks we all need to register to be unique individuals?
So it was at the inception of the company.
Okay.
Sam Altman has long kind of toyed with the idea of universal basic income. He's blogged about it, expressed kind of lukewarm support for it. And even at the inception of Tools for Humanity, they put out this white paper a couple of years ago, which said one day this financial slash identity system that we will create by putting everybody in the world on this uh, unique human identifying system, that will allow the distribution of a universal basic income in a way that we just don't have a way of doing that right now. We don't have a universal banking system. We don't have a way of knowing that each account is only owned by one person doesn't have two accounts, etc. However, over the course of the last couple of years, Sam Altman has not really talked about universal basic income so much. In fact, when I interviewed Alex Blania, the CEO of Tools for Humanity, he explicitly said that he made the decision recently to stop talking about universal basic income at Tools for Humanity. It's not really a thing that they believe is going to be viable anymore. The white paper, the Orbs white paper, essentially said we're going to build this system, but the money can't come from us. The money needs to come from somewhere else, perhaps an AI lab. That's the explicit language in the paper. Now, Sam Altman is the CEO of an AI lab, so you might have thought, oh, is this OpenAI saying that when they create AGI, they'll use the orb to distribute a UBI? Not anymore. Sam Altman has begun talking more recently about a different form of redistribution of resources, not so much money, but instead essentially access to AI. He calls it universal basic compute. And the idea is very different. It essentially says, rather than giving everybody in the world money, we're going to give everybody in the world equal access to time with our AI. And you can use that however you might like, including to earn yourself some money. But the kind of initial vague promise that this biometric system might be the means for all of us to receive UBI from our benevolent AI overlords, that idea seems to have receded.
There is a part of me that feels like, what is the is there an ulterior motive here for registering us as individuals or as humans and also getting us into the crypto markets?
So part of it was, like we spoke about earlier, this desire to incentivize people to join the network. The insight that the network wouldn't work unless millions or billions of people were on it, and the only way to get that scale was to essentially give people something for nothing, or, well, something in return for their biometrics. Another important part of it is how to make the system a kind of market that sustains itself while not being under the control of any individual group. So one of the core goals of Tools for Humanity is to one day decentralize the entire system, which they say is a good thing. It would mean that you don't need to trust Sam Altman or any of their investors or their CEO to run it benevolently. Instead, you could have the people who have WorldCoin in the system, who are members of the system, instead run it as essentially a community, and they argue that the crypto infrastructure allows for the trading of essentially rewards for owning and running different elements of that system in such a way that it could work without a company sitting on top of it. Now, there are other reasons to be skeptical. Part of the design of the crypto element of the company is that 75% of all world coins are reserved for people signing up. So I go to an orb, I get a chunk of cryptocurrency, maybe the person who's referred me or invited me to that orb gets a little bit as well. The remaining 25% belongs to Sam Altman, Alex Blania, various Tools for Humanity staff, and different investors like Andreessen Horowitz and others who put in some of the $200+ million that were used to get this company off the ground. Now, if WorldCoin goes to the moon, as they say in the crypto parlance, gains a lot of value, all of those investors could sell those tokens, reaping a big payday for themselves. One unanswered question I had while reporting the story is, well, what does that mean for the stability of this proof of humanity system that you're building? If one day someone with 10 or 20% of the coins could decide to sell them all, we know from watching the crypto ecosystem that can very rapidly crash the value of a coin. And if that coin is being used as essentially the currency that keeps the entire thing running, rewarding orb operators for onboarding new users, etc., then what happens to the system? It might collapse. And if we're talking about something where the stakes are as high as keeping the internet free of AI manipulation, then it seems like you're introducing one element of new risk into the system.
You talked with a lot of people. Did you find young people or old people, were there differences in who was interested in this, who gave a hoot about privacy or not?
So I spoke to a few people in Korea over the course of a couple of days when I was there. I met many young people who were crypto enthusiasts who came along to this flagship store that I was hanging out in, who were excited about getting verified because they knew about OpenAI and Sam Altman and had lots of crypto holdings themselves and wanted to be on the kind of early adopting side of this new technology. At the same time, I met a guy in a coffee shop who came along because he'd been invited. A 20-year-old student, didn't really care about the privacy side, basically just was there for the $50 worth of cash that they have on offer when to entice people to sign up. So he basically was in and out in 5 minutes, basically only came for the money. Didn't really...
The crypto.
The crypto.
The WorldCoin, yeah.
Yeah. And then the last line of the story is about, I think, 70-year-old woman who basically hung out in the orb location for a bit, spoke with one of the operators, watched one of her friends getting verified, and then kind of, said, I'm not sure I totally understand about this. This seems like a bit of a weird trade for me to be doing without much research. I need to go home. I need to do more research on this. you never know. Like your iris is an integral part of your identity, she says, and you don't know what people are going to be able to do with it in the future. But I liked that quote to end on because one thing she said was, "Look, the world's changing. So much is changing under our feet. We don't know how it's going to turn out." And I think that really underscores the point of the story, which is like, hey, the internet is changing beneath our feet. We need some kind of mechanism to protect ourselves from this like epochal change in the way that our global communications infrastructure works. This is kind of one of the only attempts to fix it. So if we're not going to do it this way, um, we need some kind of other way to do it, and nobody else has any other ideas. So um, in some sense, maybe I think we should have more than one. Yeah.
Okay, so are you calling your friends and neighbors and telling them to go get their iris scan?
We're kind of on the cusp of an internet where some kind of proof of humanity mechanism is going to be necessary, I think. I take that part of Tools for Humanity's pitch to the world on good faith. I mean, it's very clear that with the rise of AI that can generate understandable and convincing text, images, videos, we're increasingly seeing agentic AI that can take actions in the world. We're going to need new protection mechanisms against that kind of stuff. Now, do I think Sam Altman, who is almost the man most responsible for bringing the internet to that point, is the responsible and right person to be saving us from it? I don't know. I still need some convincing. I think there are lots of good, desirable things about the way that Tools for Humanity have designed their system. Lots of the open source privacy preserving technologies are really great. I'm less convinced by the crypto element. I'm less convinced by some of the privacy decisions they've made about being able to delete your data. And I'm not totally convinced that Sam Altman isn't going to move the goalposts as he has done already on the universal basic income side of this company on some of the other promises that they've made about decentralization, about not letting power over this very crucial part of the internet's infrastructure to be concentrated in the hands of the people who are building it. And I think it would be a shame if this tool, which they've pitched to us as a way of keeping humans safe in the era of AI, was instead kind of repurposed for allowing AI to spread across the internet more easily. And we're also seeing a bit of that. Tools for Humanity has described how they want the verified world ID to be delegatable to an AI agent. So what that means is you can basically say, "Hi, I'm Billy. I have an AI agent. This is an AI agent working on my behalf." And suddenly that kind of slightly undermines the whole point of doing it in the first place, because you're not saying, "I'm a human." You're saying, "This is my bot." Now, I don't want to totally dunk on that, because we do need mechanisms for saying this AI agent is a reliable one and a good one, this one's a bad one. But at the same time, it's almost like this system is not so much being built to design the rails for humans to operate properly on the internet, but might increasingly be co-opted to be turning it into the rails for AI agents to proliferate ever more. And yeah, to have the guy who owns a $300 billion AI company in charge of that seems like a bit of a conflict of interest.
The guy who owns the chicken and the egg. Yeah.
Exactly.
Billy,
And the
thank you
farm.
so much. Everyone can read your story on time.com. I encourage anyone who's interested to do that. It's a really great piece.
Thank you very much.